The infamous liver shot. When you absolutely, positively gotta put your opponent on his knees, except no substitute. Hey, what is up, YouTube? This is Bootney Farnsworth. As you can see in the background, I'm playing a little Modern Warfare Remastered. And I know, I said the game was too slow for me, but I've been playing it a little bit and I enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, now let's get to this commentary discussion. When I was doing a Q&A, one of my subscribers had asked me why I retired from MMA, a sport that I loved, you know, one of my true passions. Now, as I've looked back on my career, if I had to sum up my career with one word, it would probably be inconsistent. Inconsistent training, inconsistent focus, inconsistent personal life, inconsistent everything. Now, back in 2000, which was my first fight, I was fighting out of Kansas City, and the sport was pretty much new. So it was kind of, we were learning as we were fighting, you know, it was like on-the-job training. But things are totally different now. You got all types of good schools in the Kansas area. Great schools. A lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, a lot of high-level athletes in the area. But back in my day, I mean, you had American Jiu-Jitsu, which I started out with. You had a couple of top guys. But then I would leave American Jiu-Jitsu and I would train with Dan Tharp, who was my coach for the middle to the end of my career. And Dan had a small gym that he was paying for. I mean, he didn't have many students. I think it was maybe 3 of us that consistently was always there. We was always trying to find people to come in to train, because you can't compete at the highest level unless you have people in the gym that could push you. So that was always my struggle as far as the gym. As far as my mental state, I never quite felt like I deserved to be fighting at that level. Well, later I did, like when I started fighting for Cage Rage, you know, I kind of felt that I deserved to be there. But early on, I can remember when I first fought in the UFC. I remember when I got into the octagon, I was kind of in awe. I was like, wow. And that happens to a lot of fighters when they go to the big show. And this had only been my 3rd fight, and I was already on the biggest stage in the sport. So it took me a while to mentally accept the fact that I was good enough to compete with some of the good guys. I mean, I fought a lot of good fighters. I beat a lot of good fighters. I fought a lot of great fighters. And that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned looking back on my career, is that whatever endeavor you pursue, and I've said it before time and time again, you make sure that you have good people around you. I mean, I had a great coach, but we was always struggling trying to find good people to train with, you know, people that would push me to a higher level. Now, my whole Cage Rage experience in fighting Silva, just the whole Cage Rage fighting over in London was the highlight of my career. But even then, you know, my training wasn't up to par. And after the Silva fight, I lost 3 straight fights. It was rough. And there was tension between me and Dan at the time. You know, once a fighter starts losing, you know, the fighter starts looking at the trainer, the coach, like, we need to make adjustments. Coach started looking at the fighter like, hey man, you need to get more focused. And I just never made the changes. I think I had those 3 losses, then I won another fight in a smaller show. But I pretty much should have retired, you know, after my whole Cage Rage fight, because I never made adjustments. You know, my training didn't get better. You know, I get home and it's like,
But I didn't cheer. I stood right up and started shouting, "This isn't what happened last week! Have you all got amnesia? They just cheated us! This isn't fair! He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car!"
Now, it wasn't that bad, but you get the point. Now, my second to last fight, I decided to take a local fight in Kansas, and I got brutally knocked out. And I remember the night before the fight, my girlfriend said, "I hope you break your neck tomorrow." Yeah, it was rough. So I should have been done then. I should have retired then. But I decided to take another fight. And I remember getting in the cage. I even went to Iowa for my very last fight. I can't even remember if Dan was still with me at the time, but I went to Iowa to train with Robbie Lawler and the guys up in Iowa. But I lost that fight by submission. But I remember getting in the cage.
Shit. Did I leave the stove on?
And I was thinking about everything but fighting. And that just doesn't cut it. That's when I knew I was done. Fighting is not something you can halfway do. You either do it or you don't do it. There's no middle ground. It's a dangerous sport. So you're either all in or you're all out. Now is definitely time for me to hang up my gloves. But you know what? I have no regrets. I've learned so much inside the cage that applies to outside of the cage. And I'm going to share that with you in my next couple of commentaries. But before I do that, we're going to take a trip to Amsterdam. This is Bootney Farnsworth, the commentator, formerly known as the only pugilistic COD commentator in the business.